A woman accidentally opens a portal to the past, preventing a tragedy, and finds herself in an alternate reality from which there is no escape. The movie begins on the evening of November 9, 1989, the day the Berlin Wall fell. In Spain, a boy named Nico Lazarte sets up a video camera and records himself playing various songs on the guitar. Then his mother enters the room, says goodbye, and leaves for work. Meanwhile, a storm rages outside, causing electronics to malfunction and communication problems. After some time, Nico hears screams coming from the neighboring house. Looking out the window, he realizes that his neighbor, Angel Prieto, is arguing with his wife, Hilda. Worried about the woman, Nico sneaks into the neighbor's house and discovers her lifeless body in horror. Suddenly, Angel appears in the room with a knife in hand, and frightened Nico rushes out into the street when suddenly we jump to the year 2014. Nurse Vera, her husband, banker David, and their little daughter Gloria have just moved into the house where Nico's family used to live. Additionally, a storm similar to the one 25 years ago is approaching the city. On the evening of November 9th, while cleaning up, Vera and David find Nico's old television, his video camera, and a collection of tapes. Curious, they call Gloria and play the recordings where Nico plays the guitar. After watching the videos, David takes a cassette out of the camera when suddenly the power goes out for a moment. Unexplainably, the television starts broadcasting the news about the fall of the Berlin Wall. Later, neighbors Idor and his mom Clara join them for dinner. Vera and David tell them about the strange incident, but they don't take their words seriously. Then, David tells the guests about the boy in the recordings, and Idor immediately realizes it's Nico, his childhood best friend. He shares the unfortunate incident, but his mother noticeably becomes nervous and asks her son to be silent. At night, David searches for information about the event on the internet and learns that Angel took his own life 3 months after the trial, confessing beforehand that he had planned to bury his wife on his livestock farm. The storm intensifies, and suddenly, in the middle of the night, the old television turns on and again broadcasts the same news. Awoken by the noise, Vera approaches the TV and wants to turn it off when suddenly, on the other side of the screen, Nico appears, starting to record his videos. The boy notices the shocked Vera, greets her, and they begin to talk. Vera tries to explain that she lives in his house, but in the year 2014. However, the boy doesn't believe her and thinks everything happening is an amazing trick. Suddenly, Nico hears screams from the neighbor's house. Vera pleads with him not to go there and tells about the tragic incident that is supposed to happen. Despite the warnings from the unfamiliar woman from the future, Nico goes outside but avoids getting hit by a car, as Vera manages to lead him away. The next morning, Vera wakes up in the hospital where she works, wearing unfamiliar clothes, and has no idea how she ended up there. Soon, her colleagues call her to the operating room, addressing her as a doctor, leaving Vera completely puzzled. Frightened, Vera goes to her daughter's school, but teachers and students claim they don't know any Gloria. Confused, she goes to her husband's office and informs David about their daughter's disappearance, only to find out that David doesn't recognize Vera either. In desperation, Vera goes to the police station and tells Inspector Lyra that no one among her close ones knows her. She asks for help, and Lyra asks her a few questions to reconstruct the events of the previous day. Vera talks about watching the tapes and interacting with Nico, but Lyra doesn't believe the distressed woman. Moreover, it turns out she is not married, and she doesn't have a daughter. The inspector assures Vera that the life she described is merely a product of her imagination and directs her for examination. Vera returns to her hospital, undergoes an MRI, but the results confirm that her brain is functioning perfectly normal. She then speaks with the chief doctor, who claims that David became her first patient for whom she performed a surgery to remove a cerebral meningioma as the lead surgeon. However, Vera insists that it's impossible. The man takes Vera to her office, where everything confirms that she is the hospital's top neurosurgeon. He also informs her that her last patient, an 11-year-old girl, didn't survive. Since Vera struggled to cope with the failure, she was prescribed tranquilizers, which likely caused confusion. But Vera is convinced there must be another explanation. She recalls that all anomalies occurred during the storm and now intends to find out about Nico's fate, the boy she saved. Meanwhile, in 1989, Nico continues to live a normal life, chatting with Aitor and trying to understand what happened the previous night. He draws a portrait of Vera and attempts to contact her again through the television, but nothing works. He peeks out the window and observes his neighbor Angel, who was never arrested for the committed crime. Nico notices someone handing money and documents to Angel. Evidently, he wants to escape. Then Angel heads to the livestock farm for necessary tools, and Nico decides to sneak into his house. He cautiously goes upstairs, enters the bathroom, and regaining his composure, the boy starts searching for clues in the house and soon finds Hilda's passport, but with a photo of Clara, the mother of his friend Aitor. Apparently, Angel wants to pass off Clara as his wife to conceal the crime. Just as Nico is about to escape, Angel returns home. The frightened boy hides under the bed in the bedroom, witnessing in horror as the deranged neighbor deals with Hilda's body. He also finds someone's wristwatch on the floor and decides to keep it. Soon, the phone rings in the bedroom, and Angel answers. It's a worried Clara, who informs him that she forgot her watch at his place. Angel promises to find them, and they agree to meet at the airport. Luckily, Nico manages to escape during this time. In 2014, Vera, in a panic, returns home and notices that everything has changed, and different people live there now. She rushes to the computer and searches for the name Nico Lazarte. It turns out that this is the name of a fictional character in the works of a certain Karen Sardon. Suddenly, the homeowner, Ursula, appears behind her, demanding an explanation of how Vera ended up there. Vera tries to convince the woman that this is her house, but David enters the room, revealing that he is married to Ursula. Vera still tries to persuade David that they are a family and have a daughter. Ursula, unsure whom to believe, calls the police. At the same time, due to a powerful thunderclap, the entire street loses electricity. Vera runs outside and, seeing the police, decides to hide. The sounds of sirens and the absence of light bring neighbors, including Angel, who was never arrested, and his new wife Clara, out to the street. Then Clara's son, Aitor, joins them. He works as a pilot and is about to leave for a new flight. After making sure everything is okay with David and Ursula, Aitor gets into his car and heads to the airport, but after some time, terrified, Aitor jumps out of the car. Vera tries to explain to him that they know each other and provides many details about his life to make him believe her. Then Vera recounts how they first met. They always took the same train, and Vera had a favorite spot. On September 12, 2001, Aitor sat right across from her, and during a stop, Vera lost her balance and bruised herself. Aitor got off the train with her to help, and since then, they became friends and eventually started dating. Once they went to the movies and met Aitor's friends, David and Ursula. That's when Vera realized that David was the one, and she immediately fell in love with him. But Aitor doesn't believe Vera's story and is about to leave. As a farewell, he extends his hand, and when Vera touches Aitor, she suddenly realizes that in this alternate reality, Aitor never sat across from her, and they never met. Then Vera asks him about Nico. She tells him about Nico's connection to Hilda and how Angel, Aitor's mother's husband, killed her 25 years ago. Aitor thinks Vera is crazy and leaves. Suddenly, an interview with the writer Karen Sardon is broadcast on TV, who wrote a book about Nico. She reveals that the novel was inspired by the stories of a boy suffering from schizophrenia, and she confesses that the story about the woman from the future on the TV was told to her by Nico's mother. Soon, Inspector Lyra appears behind her, and after a while, they go to the library, where Vera finds that very book about Nico called Mirage. Vera confesses to Lyra that she is the woman from the TV and asks him to let her prove she's not crazy. Later, they go to Karen Sardon, and Vera tells her story. However, the writer, like everyone else, doesn't believe her and considers the story about the woman from the future pure fiction. Yet Karen notices that the storm could have formed a space-time tunnel. Vera then inquires about how to recreate such a communication channel, and Karen claims that they need to recreate all the details of that evening, including the TV, camera, and the storm. Vera learns that after the storm ends, the temporal bridge will close forever. The storm has been going on for 53 hours already, and in 1989, it ended after 72 hours. So, she has very little time left to return to her real life. She wants to find out Nico's whereabouts and asks for Lyra's help, but he states that he can't access the archives without substantial grounds. Then Vera reveals that they will likely find Hilda's remains at Angel's livestock farm. A search operation begins, and to everyone's surprise, her words turn out to be true. Later, Lyra secretly informs Vera of the address where she can find Nico Lazarte and lets her go. Vera heads to the given address and soon finds herself in a hotel. Inside, she doesn't find Nico, but she encounters David, who is cheating on Ursula with one of the nurses from her hospital. Vera realizes that David is cheating on her in her real life too because she notices a matchbox in the room with the hotel's name, the same one she found at his place shortly before the incident. However, Vera decides to focus on the main issue. David works at a bank, meaning he has access to the data of many people, among whom Nico might be. She blackmails David with the truth about his infidelity and demands the necessary information. David reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, the police arrest Angel and Clara, after which they are interrogated by the detective and Inspector Lyra. In flashbacks, we see how in 1989, Angel, thinking his wife had left, invites Clara into the house. However, Hilda, suspecting her husband of infidelity, secretly returns earlier than promised. She hears noise coming from the bedroom, takes a knife, and goes to the lovers. Finding them in bed, enraged Hilda attacks them with a knife. She tries to stab Clara, but Angel pushes his wife away. During the struggle, Clara grabs the knife and accidentally stabs Hilda in the abdomen, then pushes the woman down the stairs. In the present, the police inform Angel about Nico's testimony, which no one believed back then. They talk about engraved watches that the boy found in his house, proving that Angel had an accomplice, his current wife, Clara. Moreover, it turns out that Clara, with the help of forged documents, staged Hilda's departure, which was why no one took Nico's words seriously back then. On the contrary, the boy was accused of breaking into the house and stealing the watches. Ultimately, Nico was considered insane, and his mother took him out of town. For a long time, he was under the care of psychiatrists and underwent endless examinations. Later, he admitted that the woman from the future did not exist but only to be left alone. In reality, he never stopped thinking about that incident and hoped to meet her someday. We see how Nico changes over time, and soon it becomes clear that he is the same Inspector Lyra. One day, he did meet Vera on the train and talk to her, but at that time, she knew nothing about him. At the police station, Lyra finally confesses that he is the same Nico, shocking Angel. At the same time, David finally finds information about Nico Lazarte. Vera goes to the new address and meets Nico, who finally tells her the truth. It turns out that Vera herself changed the past during the contact with little Nico because thanks to her, he survived. All these years, Nico has been obsessed with meeting her, and circumstances unfolded in a way that she met him on the train, not Aitor. And since she didn't meet Aitor, she didn't get to know David and didn't have a daughter. That's why they don't recognize her in this reality. After meeting on the train, Vera and Nico started dating and soon got married. He wanted to ask her about that amazing contact many times, but he was afraid of ruining everything and losing her. But during another storm, everything changed, and Vera stopped recognizing him. Soon, Nico kisses her, and memories of life with him flash before Vera's eyes. But despite everything, the shocked woman doesn't want to stay in this reality and asks for help to return to David and Gloria. Nico doesn't want to let Vera go when suddenly, to save Vera and return her to her familiar reality before the storm ends, Nico retrieves his old television, connects a camera, and reaches out to his past self, asking for help. The next day, Vera wakes up in her bed and is relieved to find David next to her. She then rushes to her daughter's room, who fortunately is also here. After some time, she learns that Angel is free and decides to restore justice. She goes to the slaughterhouse, finds Hilda's remains, and calls the police. She meets Nico as Inspector Lyra, but he doesn't recognize her. Would you like to control the past and future, altering reality? If yes, what event in the past would you prevent? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.